Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one I'm going to be reviewing Stellar Miracle, which is basically just the bulk of Stellar Crown. There is also some other cards that are being added, like cards from the Battle Academy decks, but they're terrible, and we don't need to review them, so yeah. Stellar Miracle, that's like the main chunk of our next English set after Shrouded Fable. So the first card that we can have a very brief look at is this Lydian. It just says when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve it, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with 90 HP or less and move it to the active spot, which is okay. It's not terrible, but at the same time, you're probably not going to get this off more than once or twice in a game. And the fact that you can't really loop these because we don't have Scoop Up Net, it's just like Professor Tourist Scenario or Collapse Stadium that you need to play in order to loop this, which doesn't feel great. So unless you're in playing some weird like Hyper Gust grass build of Torterra, I don't think this card is super great, but it is interesting at the very least. We also have a Cradley, which got its own video because it was that infamous. But yeah, looks like a lot of fun, to be honest. I will be giving this one a go. There's a few options you can play with this. But yeah, Marsha wins. I just don't think this card is doing nearly enough damage. And it's a shame. But I hope we get some more fossil support soon because they're just way too slow and awkward. Like having to Arvin for your basic evolution pretty much is just, yeah, it's a shame, but it is fun though. We do have a Carnivine, which does 130 damage and 10 less damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon, which honestly isn't terrible damage in GLC, especially if you're a fan of this Pokemon. I regularly forget that Carnivine is actually a Pokemon, but yeah, it's alright, it's okay for GLC. I don't think it's anything special though in Standard. We do have a Rotom with Harvesting Dash that does 30 damage, and before doing damage, you can discard all Pokemon tool cards and Special Energy from your opponent's active Pokemon, which is quite a nasty counter to Lugia, just discard all 4 energy and potentially a tool card. But at the same time, I don't think this card is like good enough really, and well, just based on the fact that Lugia doesn't see that much play right now, it's not like a super popular deck. We might see some like very busted special energy in a future set, and there is a Diancie in this set which also counters Pokemon with special energy. So maybe they are like gearing us for a reprint of Double Colors, could be. We are kind of overdue another Double Colors energy, or at least some style of Double Colors. But yeah, Rotom could be worth keeping an eye on in case we do. But yeah, as it stands, nothing super crazy. Then we have this new Grubbin, and yeah, this always catches me off guard, but of course, like Charger Bug and Vikavolt are electric. Then we have a Eldegoss, which is it's alright. Put this Pokemon all cards attached to it into your deck. If you do, search your deck for up to 3 cards. Quite nice for a fun control deck, I guess, but maybe not super competitive. We also have this Diplin, which does 20 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to his Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon, which is quite scary. I don't think this is maybe good enough for the festival deck, but it could be just like a nice one of, or like if you're playing, well, you're probably playing like Rare Candy anyway, but just as a nice one of or two of in the Hydrapple EX deck. So this guy has the ability Ripe Charge. Once in your turn, you may attach a basic Grass Energy to it, and if you do, well, to one of your Pokemon. And if you do, heal 30 damage from that Pokemon, and then Syrup Storm does 30 base and 30 more for each grass energy attached to all your Pokemon. So, kind of a strong ability. You get multiple of these in play. You can heal a lot of damage and also stack a lot of energy to do a lot of damage. You can definitely get some 2-hit kills pretty quickly. You're probably not getting many 1-hit kills just because 30 is such a low modifier to be working with, and you are a stage 2. So we have to be a bit realistic about how many of these you're actually going to set up. I do think this is like a decent rogue deck with Ogerpon at the very least, so that's fun at the very least, It's nice. It's another deck that can beat Charizard maybe, but yeah. Aside from that, nothing too crazy, I don't think. We have a Salazzle, which is quite violent actually. When you evolve it, you can discard 3 cards from your opponent's hand, but after that, you're just discarding one card rather. And yeah, aside from that, it's not like super crazy. I mean, you could get unfair stamp and stuff like Judge involved and destroy your opponent's hand, I guess. But honestly, it doesn't seem that strong, weirdly enough. I don't know. Maybe I'm like underestimating this card and how potent it will be, but to be honest, I'm not seeing like crazy potential with this. Maybe it does have potential, but honestly, it's just not speaking to me. I don't know why, but yeah, Salazzle not doing it for me. Turtonator is sadly a bit more on the bulk side. Yeah, definitely a GLC kind of card. We have a Scorbunny and a Raboot, which sadly don't do anything. Combustion doing 60 for 3 is quite hilarious. Cinderace is a bit more of a controversial card. Some people think this one is really good. Other people really don't like it. First Strike for Fire Double Colors does 280, which is A lot of damage to be doing. Granted, you can't use Flare Strike next turn, but that's nothing to stop you from using Garnet Volley or just retreating for free. So, good free retreat into something, then play a switch, or, switch into another Cinderace and then retreat that one. Plenty of choices. There's also like Armouge to reset the attack, really, I guess. Yeah. So you could like switch out and then Armouge move the energy up, so that's an option. So yeah, Flare Strike, it's a lot of damage, basically. Like 280 is a lot. Garnet Valley doing 180 snipe is whatever, and it's for a fire dark fighting? Yeah, fire dark fighting or fire fighting dark. So it's decent damage overall, but honestly, I think this will be like best when it's paired with Lost Zone, honestly, and not much else, which is a bit scary because Lost Zone does rotate, I think, yeah, next spring. But, aside from that, I don't think Cinderace is that scary, but yeah, it's a lot of damage though. 280 is a lot. We do have his Lapras, which is quite fun. Power Splash doing 40 damage for each energy attached to his Pokemon. And then Larmar Rain for a Water Psychic Metal. Says, look at the top 20 cards of your deck. So this is going to be annoying to play against IRL. It's going to be very slow. But you do attach any number of energy cards you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like. And it does not specify Special Energy or Basic. So you can accelerate Special Energy with this, which is quite scary. And there is a, Terra Aspect Crystal that will allow you to essentially pay for Larimar Rain, but for 1 energy less. So you can do this for 2, which is quite nice. You also got like the Crispin. So it is technically possible to pull this off turn 1 going second, but it is a bit difficult. It is possible, though, that you can do this. Overall, though, I don't think this card is super crazy because by the time you forked out for this energy cost, then, it's just like, why are you not playing other ways of accelerating energy? And like a Psychic has Xatu and Gardevoir. Water has Baxcalibur. Metal has Metang. So this might be better than Metang for sure, but like you have to put Water and Psychic Energy in your deck anyway to use it. So I don't know. It doesn't seem great. It's a very powerful effect, don't get me wrong, but as it stands, I don't think we have enough ways of making this broken. If we had like Welder for 2 different energy, then maybe, but the fact that we don't have Welder is kind of like, we have Crispin, but Crispin's like Welder on a budget, really. Power Splash is also okay, but, if you're paying for this using water or this attack, then yeah, I'd probably rather just use Baxcalibur Chien-Pao. Still be a fun card, though. Still be a lot of fun to play these, make decks out of them, but yeah. Also have this Luminion, which is 70 damage for 2 energy. Okay, we can skip Luminion. We have a Tortuga and a Caracosta. This one's quite fun. Your opponent's attacks do... Your Pokemon's attacks, rather. Your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active evolution Pokemon, which is quite fun. Tidal Wave doing 150, so you can do like 180 against Charizards and stuff, and then like 210 plus, and it's just like, well, that's decent damage, it's not terrible. But it does take 2 energy. You are a stage 2 fossil. Like I'm sure there'll be people who play this with like Chien-Pao and Baxcalibur. There'll be ways to make it work, right? With a EXP share and Palkia, maybe that could be enough. But honestly, it just seems like really slow. I mean, if like Fraligator can do 280 for 2 energy, and that's a lot easier to set up and pull off, and Fraligator doesn't see any play whatsoever, then yeah, I'm struggling to see a world where Caracosta will be good. But hopefully I'm proven wrong, because I do like fossils and I wish they were better. We do have a Carbomble over here with the ability Prep Work, which says attacks used by this Pokemon cost 1 colorless less for each Kofu in your discard pile. Then Haymaker does 250 for a whopping 5 energy, and you can't use Haymaker next turn, but costs 1 colorless less. So we're just trying to find Kofus and discard them, Kofu being a supporter card, which is a wee bit annoying. We have to use stuff like Pokegear to find them, and then Ultra Ball and stuff to discard them, but honestly, not super great because it's just difficult to track down supporters. I felt that way with the Breaks in Serena deck, was that it was kind of difficult to actually find Serenas consistently, but I guess we have Tatsugiri now, to be fair. Like, yeah, we have Tatsugiri, so maybe this isn't like too bad. And 250 is a lot, we said 280 was a lot with Cinderace. Like 250 is a lot to be doing on a single prize stage 1 Pokemon. So as long as we can get those Kofus found and Tatsugiri set up and play, then yeah, Carbomble should be pretty good. And for a while we do have Arida to make this deck more consistent. So yeah, Carbomble should be quite fun. You also have this Dreadnought, which says, if an attack from your opponent's Pokemon would deal 200 damage or more to this Pokemon, prevent that damage. Which I think is worth bearing in mind, actually, because there are some decks that can't help scale their damage. Like, Iron Hands is going to be a bit of a weird one, because I'm pretty sure this ability would kick in after Iron Hands hits you for weakness, so you'd be safe from Iron Hands, and you would be safe from Charizard in the late game. So just things worth bearing in mind. I don't think it's a super great card at the end of the day, but not terrible either. Okay, so Veluza's okay. I don't think this card is exceptional. Like maybe a nice one of in the Carbonal deck, but to be honest, 110 just isn't a lot of damage. And the funny thing is, right, with like Cramorant, is it's really good in the early game. So I'd imagine this would be as well. But the fact of the matter is, you've got to get all those Kofus in the discard pile in the early game for it to be really good. So to be honest, I don't see Veluza being super great, but at least worth considering for the Kofu deck. So that's nice. Then we get to an Electrive line. Now, it's a bit strange to me that Electrive is here, but not Magmortar, I guess. It's a bit weird, but anyway. Lightning Strike does a whopping 220 for 2 lightning energy, but it does say that during your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack, and it includes Pokemon that come into play this turn. So it is a massive downside, sadly, so I don't think this guy would see any play, which is a bit of a shame, really, because, it could have been a very fun single prize deck, but doing 220 is it's a lot of damage, but the effect is just super bad. So maybe with like a walling Pokemon like Mimikyu, it might be playable, but to be honest, like you're not getting one to kill on anything. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but I'll try and do something with Electrive maybe when it comes around. But either way, nothing super crazy. And we have yet another Lantern, but this one isn't good at all, I don't think. It can confuse your opponent's active Pokemon, and you do 8 damage counters instead of 3 for the special condition. But, your opponent will just switch out or evolve. So, yeah, sadly, not a very good Lantern. Then we do see Joltik, which is a very, very scary card. Only got 30 HP though, which is crucial, but does have the very powerful attack Battery Charge that allows you to search your deck for 2 Grass Energy and 2 basic Lightning Energy and attach them in any way you like, which is a crazy effect. However, Joltik only having 30 HP just means that, you just have to sneeze on it and it will die. So, yeah, I think it's only really, really good with Galvantula, and then beyond that, it's kind of like way, way more niche. It might see play with other stuff, but to be honest, I just don't really see it, not with only having 30 HP. So, like, yeah, I think Galvantula X will be pretty good as a result, though. You'll be able to charge up for Fulgurite and just kind of like try and get 2 KOs. So, you use Charge Web to do 220 to an EX, and then maybe finish them off if you don't get a KO with Fulgurite, and then you can discard all energy, but your opponent can't play the items, so hopefully that will slow them down. And if you can do this while carrying a Charizard when they don't have another one set up, then they'll stop them from playing Rare Candy. So yeah, definitely think Cavantia has some decent potential. Then we also see this new Charger Bug, which is worth bearing in mind in case we ever get a new Vikavolt EX or something. But search your deck for the 3 Charger Bugs, put them onto your bench. Pretty good attack for a stage 1 to have. Unfortunately, Vikavolt itself isn't super great. Maybe with the new Slowking, it's okay, but yeah, aside from that, Vikavolt, nothing too crazy. We have a Togedemaru, which I think we can skip. It's not very good. So Aura Combat Thunder, 20 damage, 20 more for each of your opponents benched. I mean, this is okay. We seem to be like pushing this luminous energy like style toolbox deck with Flamigo and stuff, but like the thing is, your opponent, as soon as they see these attackers, they're not going to bench that much. I know it's not going to matter if this is a tech card, but I don't think you can like exclusively build a deck around this basically. But yeah, it's an interesting card though, and worth keeping an eye on in case we ever get like even more bench modifiers. Then we also see a new Slowking line, and it is worth mentioning that there is like 70 HP Slowpokes, so you will be able to use stuff like Buddy Buddy Poffin. But the Slowking does have the attack inspirational challenge. Discard the top card of your deck, and if that card is a Pokemon without a Roblox, choose one of that Pokemon's attacks and use it as its attack. So a very potent attack in of itself, because you can copy stuff like that Vikavolt's second move that did 240. So you can do like decent damage. There's also like the Conkeldurr that does 250. So yeah, definitely some very, very strong moves to copy. There's stuff like Scizor that you can copy. So this is like basically Zorobox 2.0, I guess. Could be a bit better because we did have a new stadium coming around. Battle Academy, I think it's called, from Shrouded Fable. I can fiddle a top deck from your hand, so that's cool. So yeah, definitely think Slowking has a bit of potential, but nothing competitive. Basically, it's not going to be competitive, but not when you're so reliant on a stadium like that. But yeah, it'll be a decent rogue deck for sure. Then we have a new Drifloon with the move Everyone Explode now, which does 50 damage for each Drifloon and Drifblim you have in play, which is very good. but this attack also does 30 damage to each of your Driflim and Driftblim in play. So does a lot of damage, just for putting balloons into play. What I really like about this attack is the fact that you can just do it with the basics in play. That's fantastic. You're not just relying on having all these stage ones set up, which is fun. It also means that you can play the basic Drifloom that has like the attack that does 30 damage for each damage counter on it. So, there's definitely a bit of a rogue deck here. Could have a lot of fun with it. And, there's stuff like Zartu. You could pair this up with spread attackers if you really wanted to, like Monkey Dory to heal up your Pokemon if you want to use it multiple times. But yeah, could definitely see this being a very fun budget deck. But yeah, just seems like a lot of fun. Then we see a Comfey, which is basically a theme deck card. But hey, Flower Shower says each player draws 3 cards. So could do something funny with hand trimmers. But aside from that, nothing too crazy. Have an Alcremie, which is terrible, frankly. Search your deck for up to 5 Pokemon with the same energy, same type as any basic energy attached to Alcremie, but the thing is, like, you don't want to be using a stage 1 with loads of different basic energy on it to find other Pokemon from the deck. It's just so inconsistent, but it's a bit of a shame because Alcremie is very cute, but yeah. So then we have a Dashbun EX, which says once your turn when you evolve it, you may heal all damage from each of your evolutions. However, if you do, discard all energy from each one healed in this way. So it's a pretty rough effect, and one thing I will say is healing all damage could be really, really good, but at the same time, it's just like, oof, discarding all energy on top of, Dashbun being very fragile. 250 HP is kind of fragile, I would say, in this day and age, so yeah, it's a wee bit concerning, so I'm not sure if Dashbun really has any applications immediately, but it could be quite fun with stuff like Venusaur EX, try and out tank the opponent. But yeah, seems alright, but nothing too crazy. Also have this Iron Boulder that can do 170 damage for 2 energy, which is kind of scary. But you have to have the same cards in your hand as your opponent, so you will have to play stuff like Judge. And that's kind of a bit awkward, really, to keep doing that every turn. But if there's a way to do it, then 170 is a lot, and you could get Iron Crown and Future Booster Caps involved because it is a future Pokemon. So yeah, I could definitely see this being quite a fun rogue deck to try and make work, but not really top of my list, really, when it comes to interesting cards to mess around with. I definitely think there's better choices, but not the worst thing in the world. Then we have a Marak, which might be an okay budget deck. Bone Revenge doing 60, and then if your bench key don't have any damage counters on them, it does 120 more. So we do have stuff like Steelix to do 130, and then 30 to each of your benched. And you also have like Gabe Draw Bog. You could even do stuff like Monkey Dory at that point as well, though energy might get a bit weird. But in case they ever reprint, like Double Colorless, Twin Energy, something like that, then Marak is certainly worth keeping an eye on, which is quite cool. And we also see a new Rhyperior line, and this Rhyperior does have 200 HP, which I believe makes it the tankiest Stage 2 single price Pokemon we've seen, which is really cool. It does have the ability Wide Wall. It says as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand to prevent all effects of that card done to your Pokemon in play. So yeah, quite a strong effect to have, but you are a Stage 2, so it's a wee bit clunky to be a tech card, and it only works when it appears in the active spot. And then Drill Run does 180 for fighting double colors, and you have to discard energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. So not a bad attack, not a bad ability at all. 200 HP makes it quite tanky, but there is no Buddy Poffin for Rhyhorn, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, could be quite fun in GLC and stuff. But yeah, aside from that, don't think Rhyperior is anything too special. Then we have a new Medicham EX, which seems quite fun. 260 HP, so a wee bit fragile. But Chai Atsu, I think it's pronounced, for 2 colors, says put damage counters on your opponent's active until its remaining HP is 50, which, funny enough, does combo quite nicely with the Wheezing from 151, which also needs 2 colors energy and does 50 damage plus 10 damage spread. So definitely think there's a world where that could be a fun rogue deck, and Medicham could be comboed quite nicely with stuff like Poison and Frostlass. So yeah, I could definitely see Medicham having some fun uses. It's nothing like exceptional or anything, but just a bit of fun, just a bit of a fun deck to try out. We also have this Mind Shell, which does 30 damage, and if your opponent has 5 of your cards in hand, okay, this card is terrible. Only does 120. Ouch. For some reason, I thought it did way more damage than that, but no. Yeah, that's pretty grim. Then we also have a new Pancham, a new Diancie, which is interesting. Does 40 damage for each special energy attached to your opponent's Pokemon. But thing is, Lugia is like the biggest user of special energy in standard right now, really. And Lugia is resistant to fighting, so not really sure what's going on here. Is this like supposed to be a Lugia counter, or is it supposed to be like a Terapagos counter? Are they worried about Terapagos double turbo being a thing? But like, even then, you're not really doing a lot of damage versus Terapagos, so it's a bit of a weird card to be honest. Not really sure why it's around, but maybe there's going to be some busted special energy in the future. But yeah, down C, a bit of a strange card. Then we have a Crabrola to go with a Carbomel from earlier, a Phalanx, which is sadly not very good. It might be alright in GLC actually, like 120 after you've used a Call Family attack, which is quite nice. But aside from GLC, I don't see Phalanx seeing much play. Then we also have a new Gulpin, which has an amazing art rare of the set. We also have a Swalot with Gulp Down, which does 10 damage, and if this Pokemon has more energy attached to it than your opponent's active Pokemon, this attack does 160 more. So 170 is a lot, but you will have to put a lot of energy on Swalot in order to use it. So it's probably going to be a bit bad, but I could definitely see it being a lot of fun with like Crushing Hammers, and certainly in GLC should be pretty fun. So yeah, it's kind of like a cool card, but nothing too crazy. Then we have a Pangoro, which is sadly bulk. We have a Grimmsnarl line, which is alright, but your opponent has to choose. Like, you don't get the choice about which Pokemon gets switched out with Provocative Clutch, and it only does 160, so sadly, I don't think Grimmsnarl is going to be anything special, but it is a fun card nonetheless, maybe one worth trying out. Then we get the new Klinklang line, which I personally don't think is super necessary, but Hyper Beam doing 130 here to KO at Chien-Pao because you can just slot it directly onto the bench if your opponent has a stage 2. Otherwise, there's no real point to playing it, and the stage 1 and basic are pretty useless. So yeah, bit of a frustrating card in my opinion to have around, but yeah, a Chien-Pao counter if you really want it. There's also a Meltan and Melametal. Melametal actually seems pretty fun. Remodel Axe doing 250 for a Metal Double Colorless, and before dealing damage, discard a Pokemon tool card from this Pokemon. If you can't, this attack does nothing, but 250 is a lot. It sucks that we won't be able to get like other damage modifiers involved. That would be a 2 card, but at the same time, you could use stuff like Frostlass to pump up those numbers. So yeah, I definitely think Melametal could be a lot of fun to try out. Then we have a Duraludon, which is its cheeks. Let's move on. We have Arch Duraludon or Archodon. You are also terrible. That is a bit of a shame, but yeah, Archaludon, nothing too great. We have an Orthworm EX, which is alright to be honest. When it's damaged, you put 2 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon for each metal energy attached to it. And then Rock Tomb for a whopping 4 energy. It does 150, but they can't retreat. So yeah, very easy to set up 2 KOs with this, thanks to the ability, and you could maybe even polish some Pokemon off with the ability, which is kind of fun. So it's definitely like an obvious partner for like Metang or something, like this could be a very fun deck to try out. Like nothing too crazy, of course, kind of like Heatran really, but yeah, it's not going to be great, but certainly a bit of fun to try out. Have a new Raging Bolt, which might be okay in a Raging Bolt deck, funnily enough, in the Raging Bolt EX deck, but aside from that, don't think it's really that good outside of that in GLC maybe. Like 30 damage snipe for each energy attached to it seems really good, but you have to commit so many energy before this is doing relevant damage, so yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but don't think it's super great at the end of the day. We have a new Noctowl line, which is a wee bit scary with Terapagos. So when you play it, and if you have a Terra Pokemon in play, not just Terapagos actually, just any Terra Pokemon, you may search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards, which does include your Stadium, Area Zero, effectively. So yeah, that's kind of like why it's a bit scary. Is you can find your Area Zero, you could find Arvin, you could basically just find anything that you need because Arvin finds so much out of the deck anyway. So yeah, it's a very, very scary card, especially for like Charizard and Dragapult. It's effectively double Pidgeot almost if you have a Charizard in play already. Just a wee bit scary. At least I didn't give it Free Retreat. That would have been awful, but yeah. Noctowl, very, very good card. Then we have a Purugly, which does 80 damage, flip a coin of heads, parental damage. We did not need to talk about Purugly. Fan Rotom with the ability Fan Call says once your turn, and I think this only works on your first turn. I thought it's only worked on your first turn. Maybe not. Once during your first turn, you may search your deck for 3 colorless Pokemon with 100 HP or less, reveal them, put them into your hand, which is fantastic because it means you can find yourself a Noctowl, which is quite nice, as well as a Hoothoot. And you could also get like a Buffalont if you really, really wanted to, but to be honest, it just seems like a pretty nice one-off, I would say, for Noctowl and Terapagos. So that's nice. But yeah, Assault Landing also doing 70 is quite aggressive. If there isn't a stadium, it fails. But 70 damage is quite nice for carrying evolving basics if you have Area Zero in play. So yeah, it's quite a nice single prize option for Terapagos. And Bouffalon just says if you have another Bouffalon, so you have to play two minimum, which is a bit annoying. But if you do, your colorless basic Pokemon take 60 less damage from attacks, which is a lot actually. Like minus 60 is pretty good, so I could definitely see Bouffalon making its way into Terapagos deck, especially Terapagos builds that don't rely on other attackers and they just want to attack with Terapagos. So, just having Bouffalon in there would be quite nice support, so definitely worth picking these up. Also got a Tornadus, which is Tornadus is kind of bad. I mean, it could be quite funny. Storm Barrier means that you take minus 50. Bouffalon means that you take another minus 60, so minus 110 damage effectively. That's kind of cool, but you're only dishing 100 damage outward, so yeah, it's a wee bit awkward. But maybe in like a Terapagos deck, you could maybe pay for Storm Barrier. I don't know. Seems a bit risky though, and a bit clunky. Then we have a new Talonflame line. Sadly, a bit bad. Air Chase doing 110. If the retreat cost is 2 or more and your opponent's active, it does 220. It does have free retreat though, which is nice, so it's kind of cool for GLC, I think. But aside from that, it's just not a great card for standard. We also have a Dubwool, which is aggressively okay. 130, taking 30 less damage from attacks, does 70, may discard a stadium. It's a very much a GLC card. Like even then, I'm not sure if it's really good enough, but it's okay. It's okay. It's not good enough for standard, even for a budget deck. Then we have Terapagos, and this one I think it will be really good. I don't think it's going to be Charizard levels of broken or anything, or Dragapult, anything like that. Really, like not even Dragapult levels, but certainly like at least a B tier, if not A tier. Like Unified Beatdown just has so much damage coming out of it, like 30 for each of your bench Pokemon. Very tasty, especially have Area Zero in play. So yeah, I could definitely see Terapagos being really good. Crown Opal, I think, is a wee bit too expensive outside of Lost Zone, but aside from that, I definitely think Terapagos looks really solid. So yeah, very, very good card. Then we have Glass Trumpet. I'm just going to blast through the trainers because most people have already seen them, but Glass Trumpet is a terrifying card. Like, this is probably one of the best cards in the set, to be honest. You can only play this card if you have a Terra Pokemon in play, but who cares? Choose up to 2 of your benched colors Pokemon and attach a basic energy from your discard pile to each of them. So yeah, a lot of applications for this. My main one actually is Blissey Munkidori, just because it means that you can accelerate energy to both Munkidori and Blissey with this, and you just have to have a Terapagos in play, so that's kind of cool. Terapagos itself, of course, you could use this to power it up, but aside from that, like the evolutions, like for example, we've seen a Sylveon EX already that needs awkward energy. So in theory, you could just use this on EVs before you evolve it. So that's a nice idea. There's stuff like the Saraluge, there's plenty of choices for this card. So yeah, I could definitely see Glass Trumpet being really good. We do have the Antique Root Fossil for Lileep, which does have a very annoying ability, Primal Roots, which says as long as it's in the active, your opponent's basic attacks cost 1 colors more, which is very frustrating if you have a, what's it called, Pokemon Leak HQ, I believe it's called, yeah, Pokemon Leak HQ, which will also increase attacks by 1 colors more. So yeah, maybe there's some like awkward control applications there where you're forking your opponent's Terapagos Pokemon to pay out like 2 more colors, which would be very, very awkward. But yeah, Antique Root Fossil could be quite nasty actually in Arven heavy decks. Then we have Antique Cover Fossil, which just says prevent all effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. I mean, that's okay actually if you're playing Caracosta, but yeah, aside from that, nothing too crazy. Then we have Payapa Berry, is that right? And Oka Berry. Effectively the same thing, but for 2 different types, Psychic and Fire. So this does kind of point towards them maybe doing one of these for every typing, which I guess would be just like the Weeding Gloves from Sword and Shield. But yeah, Payapa Berry, this Pokemon takes 60 less damage from Psychic Pokemon, and then the other one is for Fire. So quite nasty against Gardevoir, and to be honest, I don't think Gardevoir is that oppressive really, so I don't think this is like such a big useful card, but at the same time, if we ever get other Psychic Pokemon that are really good, or maybe, Gardevoir gets better, it might do, then Papaya Berry or Payapa Berry would be a really good option. and then Okaberry for like Cerulean and stuff. But yeah, interesting cards overall, and definitely not terrible at all, really. We do have Sparkling Crystal, which is quite a scary A spec just because you can Arven for it, really. The attack cost of the Terra Pokemon this card is attached to is reduced by 1 of any type of energy, which is, yeah, it's a really, really good effect. Is it as good as Maximum Belt, though? Is, like my next question, really, because, like, Prime Catcher, I think, is still the undisputed best A spec, but, like, Maximum Belt plus 50 damage, very, very strong in a lot of situations. This is reducing attack cost, so it will help you with like very, very awkward, expensive attacks. So maybe it is worth it actually in Terapagos, but like mainly like Lapras, I would say, is the best use for this because it's just like you can use that bonkers attack as early as turn 2, really. If you get a Crispin involved, then maybe turn 1, but that's very awkward to do. So Sparkling Crystal, though, I do think will be really good. Then we have Gravity Stone, which says it increases the retreat cost of both active Pokemon by plus colors if it's in the active spot. So that's kind of cool, but again, well, no, because that could be really good because you could like turn Pokemon into like, as someone else mentioned this actually, into like mini Snorlaxes, where like you effectively lock your opponent's active in the active spot. So that's kind of fun, but at the same time, not very fun to play against. So I don't know. Don't know how to feel about this card really. It seems cool though, especially for GLC, but aside from that, nothing too crazy. Deluxe Bomb, this was revealed very recently, but just says if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, or even if it's KO'd, put 12 damage, so 120 damage on the attacking Pokemon, then you discard Deluxe Bomb, which is okay. It's nothing great. I think it might be a wee bit better than the laser that does like poison and a sleep or something, but like yeah, Deluxe Bomb, nothing great. It's funny, right? It can be quite funny, but yeah, put it on an Orthworm or something, make your opponent cry, but aside from that, really nothing too special. Then we have Crispin. Search your deck for 2 basic energy cards of different types, reveal them, put one in your hand, and you get to attach the other energy to one of your Pokemon. So kind of like the main new energy acceleration for Terra types, I guess, because they're always playing weird energy costs. So quite nice for Galvantula, quite nice for Terapagos especially, quite nice for Lapras, of course. But aside from that, I don't think this card is super great. Like maybe like a one-off or something in Dragapult, but yeah. Or like Luminion decks actually would be playing this if they have 2 different energy types. But aside from that, Crispin, nothing too crazy as supporters go. We have a Lacey, which I'm going to be honest, I don't think Lacey is very good. Maybe like a one-off in single price decks. We have Kofu, which is like the main card, I guess, for the Carbommal Veluza deck. Put 2 cards from your hand at the bottom of your deck, then draw 4. Seems very payable, to be honest, like just putting 2 from your hand. It does mean that you'll get rid of some valuable resources, but you're not discarding them at the very least, so you can save that boss's orders for later. So yeah, it does seem pretty decent overall. Then we get to probably my least favorite card in the set, which is Briar. You can only play this card if your opponent has exactly 2 prize cards remaining, and until the end of this turn, if your opponent's active is KO'd by damage from one of your Terra Pokemon, take 1 more prize card. What an evil card. So evil. So if your opponent's down to 2 prizes, you have a Dragapult. You're down to 2 prizes, by the way, as well. If you KO a single prize Pokemon, you just win. Which is like, really? And it feels a bit bad. Like having Charizard be able to do this as well is also a bit annoying. So yeah, it just feels kind of awkward to screw the prize race like this. I know it is supporter, I know it's very niche, but at the same time, it just feels, it feels bad. It doesn't give me like major ADP vibes, but it's kind of like it's getting there. It's a bit of a weird one. Then we have Great Tree, which is one of the last 2 stadiums. Both of these stadiums I think are pretty good, but Great Tree is like it'll have some uses, but I don't think this stadium, like initially I thought this stadium could be very, very broken, but looking at it again, it's just like it is a stadium, so you have to find it and then you have to keep it in play because if your opponent just has their own stadium, boom, you've just lost your ace spec and you've probably only got 1 use out of it. So sometimes this will be fantastic, it'll be broken, all the rest of it, but then a lot of the time I think the stadium will be heavily countered. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but don't think Great Tree will end up being super great after all. Then we have Area Zero Underdepths, which is one of the best cards in the set. Really, it's like top 4, I'd say. If a player has a Terra Pokemon to play, that player can have 8 Pokemon on their bench. So yeah, Terapagos is definitely the big one. I've got a video planned to talk about this card in more depth, but yeah, Terapagos is absolutely going to be the main exploiter of this card. Charizard and Dragapult as well, actually, could play this, but yeah, a very scary set overall. Also got some secret rares that are slowly being revealed. Joltik looking great as always. Gulpin, hilarious. Do love Gulpin's art. And then some other stuff, which is okay. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. It's been Emma Power, and as always, thank you for watching.